Well, welcome everybody to our latest Paws Up preview as we now reach the second half of the college football season. 6 games down, 6 games to go as the FIU Panthers look to rebound after that tough loss to Liberty as they take on the winless UTEP Miners. I am Jay Gibson, joined alongside my friend and co-host Kevin Barral. And Kevin, I'm still reeling. I'm still reeling after what we saw in that game. It was an overtime loss to FIU. There was some good and there was some bad, but at the same time, we came so close to knocking off the undefeated Flames, and we just didn't.
Yeah, man. I mean, it's tough. I don't, we went into that game assuming that, no offense, it was just going to be sort of a blowout. Maybe it was going to be a little bit close to begin, but FIU played well, man. There's no other way to put it. That offense looked really, really good. I know Keywan unfortunately didn't throw for a passing touchdown, but overall, you have to give credit where credit is due. The offensive line held up throughout most of the game. Miscommunication there at the end, which allowed that linebacker there to pretty much bust in and strip sack Jenkins and end the game in overtime. But overall, I mean, FIU's defense with the goal line stand there with that fumble, I mean, it couldn't have gone any better for the Panthers for the Panthers that day. And it's hard to say there's moral victories in the game because obviously you lose and that affects your record and chances. But that was a moral win. That was a moral win for FIU. Yeah. You feel better going into UTEP now. Like, I don't know, man. I feel a lot better. Obviously, the odds aren't. I don't believe they're out yet, but yeah. Overall, you got to feel pretty good going into UTEP. That's the game that you should win. It's a team that hasn't won yet. Still a team with a lot of flaws, but a team that's on the rise, and that'll be the last time FIU goes to the Sun Bowl, a place where they've historically struggled. Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Just got to move on, and there's not much more I could really say. It was a tough watch at the end, definitely. I mean, you go into it with low expectations in that Liberty game, but you look back and it's like, man, like they were so close to beating Liberty. They really could have, and man, that would have really changed this whole season around. You wouldn't be talking about Monmouth. You wouldn't be talking about FAU. Honestly, Jake, you'd probably be talking about a CUSA championship appearance. I mean, you beat the best team in the 5. I mean, it doesn't get any better than that.
And this game, along with the Monmouth game, are now getting one of those, coulda, shoulda, woulda kind of games where if FIU finishes the regular season winning 4 games, if they go 4-8, you're going to look back on this loss to Liberty and obviously that loss to Monmouth and realize if you got the job done in both of those games, you could be going bowling right now instead of.
I think it's more looking back at it because I honestly I do think FIU will win more than 4 games. Let me start off by that. I think they'll end up going 6-6, just looking at the schedule, and we'll see what happens. But it could be 7-4 or whatever it is. But FIU, I mean, you look back and they finished 5-7, for example, which that's probably towards the middle of the pack in terms of best case, worst case scenarios. I think worst case will honestly be 1 more win or 2 more wins, and that would be UTEP and Kennesaw. But you look at it, and I mean, then that's when you're kind of biting yourself, telling yourself, man, like we really lost to Monmouth,
Yeah. I mean,
at the end of the day, FIU has a good chance. They're playing no offense, just the worst teams in Conference USA with Kennesaw, Middle Tennessee, and New Mexico State. And then you have a game with Sam Houston, which was really close last season. I think that'll be the case this year as well. And Jack State, which hasn't looked like they did last year. They've been stopped, but still a team that's really good. So you overall look at what's left for FIU on the schedule, and I think every game is going to be close. I don't think there's going to be a blowout, to be fair. Jack State has put up a lot of points on the board recently, though, but FIU's defense is right now the best at stopping the pass, still struggling stopping the run, but they weren't as bad as it was last year. And overall, they're one of the best defenses in CUSA. So if they put up a big performance against UTEP, that ranking only goes up.
And one of the biggest flaws we talked about before that Liberty game that they might struggle in against the Flames is their rush defense, especially against dual threat quarterbacks. They've been historically not great against those, but I think all things considered, they did well against Caden Salter. I don't think they did as well as the game progressed. The last 2 touchdowns scored by Liberty were Caden Salter rushing touchdowns. However, I think for the most part, the defense gave it their all against this Liberty offense, and Liberty still got 281 yards on the ground. But I think there's still that's still improvement. Obviously, you hold up this Liberty offense to 31 points. That's pretty good, all things considered, against one of the better G5 teams there are, undefeated. I don't think I would pin this loss on the defense. I don't think I would pin it there.
Yeah, I mean, the defense just kept it up with one of the best offenses in the conference. So, I mean, not even in the conference, one of the best offenses in the country, in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah.
the targets that they have, the quarterback that they have. I mean, some of those guys should be in power conference schools, and they decided to stick back at Liberty. And it's a very complex offense, something that FIU head coach Mike McIntyre mentioned. So, and honestly, they were able to neutralize Salter. I mean, I think it was the first touchdown of the game was his, and so was the last. But I mean, that guy is
he's
really good. But
he's probably
again,
playing on Sunday.
FIU limited him on the air, which is something that he had relied on a lot this season, and I think that's kind of what led him to those 2 rushing touchdowns on the game. So, unfortunately, one of those was the game winner. But it's okay. I mean, look, I still think Liberty's going to break at some point. Some teams bound to beat them. They still have to face Sam Houston and Western Kentucky. I still think they have to face Jacksonville State. So 3 games, which honestly I could see them losing one of those 3 at least. So I think their regular season win streak will come to an end. It just shows that team wasn't the team that they were last season, but then it shows that FIU could play with anyone, and they certainly did that. And unfortunately, and honestly, I think every game has been really close this season for FIU.
Yeah.
They haven't been necessarily blown out by any means. I mean, the FAU game didn't even feel like a blowout, to be honest with you. That's probably the biggest gap in loss. I mean, maybe Indiana, but Indiana, they scored a touchdown right at the end. And honestly, when you look at it, that's probably the closest game Indiana's played this year, and they're going bowling. So it's overall this defense has really, really held it up. Just going back to the original statement, and JoJo Evans has been really good. I mean, Travion Barnes is second in the country in solo and total tackles.
Would you say he's the best player on FIU right now?
Travion Barnes? You got to say, yeah. I agree. I mean, it's either him or Keywan right now is putting up some numbers, man. But we'll talk about him soon. I mean, Travion, CJ Christian's 4th in the conference in total tackles. He's had a really nice season. FIU has the 3rd most interceptions. I mean, the defense, to a certain extent, you could even call, I wouldn't say the no-fly zone, but I mean, it's pretty close. It's pretty close to what they're doing. At least the no-fly zone of Conference USA. And, soon enough, if most of those guys do stick around, the no-fly zone of the group of 5.
Travion Barnes is playing like how I thought Reggie Peterson would have played this season had he stayed with the team. Obviously, it's tough to argue that he's not the best, for certainly the best player.
I love Reggie, but I think Travion's playing better right now.
Probably if he keeps it up, he's probably going to be the defensive player of the year in Conference USA. Just those numbers speak for themselves, man. FIU's offense looked pretty good. Like they went blow for blow against Liberty, and they forced it into overtime. I mean, like you mentioned, Kewan Jenkins, he is the passing yards leader in Conference USA, right?
Well, I think it needs to be clarified after yesterday's games. He's now second in passing touchdowns and in passing yards. So he went down one each. Vadiato for Middle Tennessee leads in yards, and
that's still a great improvement in his second year.
Now leads in passing touchdowns. Honestly, Kewan will probably surpass Velkamp, and I think Kewan will finish at the top of that. I do think Vadiato finishes the year as the passing yards leader, but Kewan should make an all-conference team, at least first, second or third. But he's outplaying Caden Salter. He's outplaying all these quarterbacks in CUSA, in my opinion, and he outplayed Salter on Tuesday.
It's awesome to see this development for Kewan in just his second year. As a Panther, the numbers he's putting up, if you want to just look at the numbers with Kewan, he has had a remarkable second year leading this team. And like you had mentioned, I'm happy you mentioned this earlier, the offensive line played some of their best football against the Flames, which was awesome. Unfortunately, the worst play the offensive line was involved in may have been the last one, which was obviously that strip sack and fumble that was recovered by Liberty to end the game. But beyond that, no, they had one hell of a game. And everyone contributed, by the way. Rushing wise, Owens and Joseph led the way. You even got Shaporn Dempston there with the carry. That's awesome to see. And then receiving wise, I mean, you got everyone involved, pretty much everyone. Ross Fournette, Sequan Pierre, I believe.
Saquon and No Pierre.
He and Nazavaya Burstein Patterson, pretty much almost the entire receiving corps got at least one reception.
Shout out to him. Shout out to No Pierre. That guy is putting up some fire kick returns. I mean, that guy is Yeah, he's been fun to watch.
He's been fun to watch. So I like the direction the offense is going. I still think, and I know I sounded like a salty old man when I talked about this in the post-game show, but I still don't think I liked those 2 play calls, which I highlighted, not just in that post-game show, but in the recap that I made for the Paws Up page about going for it on 4th and I believe 4, which they didn't convert, and then not going for 2 to maybe try to win that game, declining the or accepting that offsides penalty in after their final touchdown. Regardless, you have to move on. I'm sure the coaching staff has acknowledged that and are moving on as well. You have to move on. There's a lot to take away from this game positively. There's a lot negatively, but I think overall, yeah, I'm not a big proponent of moral wins because I think actual wins are way more important in college football, especially when you're trying to get to that 6-win mark. But there is a lot to take away and a lot of confidence that I'm sure has built up with this team, knowing that they just went pound for pound with Liberty and almost beat them.
Hey, man, I mean, it just makes me more excited to see what that game's going to look like down here in Miami next year if we do play the Flames, because I think now we're going to be playing less team. We're not going to be playing 2 teams in the conference, right? Since they're adding Missouri State.
Yeah. It's going to be 2 teams we're not going to play.
Imagine it's like Jack State and Liberty. That would be, oh my God.
That would be lovely. But I mean, I can't complain right now not having to play Western. You saw how good Western looked in that last game.
They're going to Western next year too.
Yeah, so that ain't going to be easy. But all right, final thoughts on that Liberty game, just on any other takeaways we didn't mention. I think offense was good, defense was good. They just couldn't get the job done. What was it? It was like a 17-16 point. Liberty was a favorite by that amount, and it came down to a touchdown. So
yeah, I mean, a lot of bettors were not going to be very happy if FIU won that game, but I think it needs to be noted just how good the receiving core was again. You kind of touched on it a little bit. Eric Rivers and Dean Patterson. Dean Patterson with a career high in receiving yards at 90, 6 receptions for 90 yards. He also had that rushing touchdown, which was that fumble there, which flexed. Yeah. But Rivers, 5 receptions for 95 yards. And I mean, Elijah Anderson-Taylor, I believe this is his first double-digit total tackle game, 11 total tackles for him. 2 sacks for Travion Barnes, which is a career high. I believe now he's third in the conference in that number. 3 tackles for loss. Yeah, I mean, that guy's a beast. There's literally no other way to say it. And yeah, man, I mean, unfortunately, still no 100-yard rusher for FIU.
It got really close. Like
Keyshawn at 52 yards. He had that touchdown. So I mean, somehow, some way, somehow, FIU. I mean, I'm looking at the numbers right now. FIU still has not seventh rush offense in the conference, but the passing offense, I mean, it's number 4 in the conference. So you're pretty excited to see that. Total offense, FIU's number 7. Not very encouraging, but still put up some of the most points in the conference. They put up 27 points a game. So a lot to be excited about. FIU also has, they're kind of in the middle of the pack when it comes to defense as well. Actually, honestly, FIU is right in the middle of the conference when it comes to the defense too. So, yeah, I mean, still struggling to stop the run, but the big stat to look at least after this week, is that now FIU is the best team against the pass in Conference USA. So, awesome. I am a big fan of that.
I think a big part about why FIU's rush offense has yet to really break out is just because of how they're really using the running backs in this offensive system. You have them primarily being used in option plays on 1st and 10 or 2nd and long, which obviously will not always get you a ton of yards because I hate to say they're kind of predictable plays and that 1st and 10 area. And then they also like to use them when they're near the end zone, which obviously they've been successful when they hand the ball off near the end zone, but that doesn't really get you a lot of yards when you utilize your rushing offense like that. They're reliable when they want them to be, but they have not had many plays where a running back just broke through the entire defense. Funnily enough, the one player that could have done that was Joseph at the end of that Louisiana Tech game. He could have ran the whole end zone, but he chose not to, which is...
He should have stopped at the 1 or the 2, man. It was break 100, man. Oh, my God.
You sound like you had flex on your fantasy team.
I think I do. I'm not sure. But
by the way, Trayon Sibley entered that game as Liberty's leading receiver, and he was clamped up. Only 1 catch for 13 yards on the day for Sibley. So
yes, sir. I mean, again, FIU's cornerbacks and safeties have done a phenomenal job. Him, JoJo, and CJ have been great. And then obviously Zeke Massis, Victor Evans, the third, and Brian Blades, all guys who I think, will be receiving a lot of interest in the transfer portal if they were to enter.
Yeah. So we'll leave you there. Not a whole lot more to talk about from this game. It was fun, but obviously, I feel like we'd be even more positive if they won, but they didn't. So say la vie. So, all righty, let's start to talk about our opponent here. It is the UTEP Miners, Kevin. I'm going to ask a question. Don't answer immediately because I'm going to provide some context afterwards. But I'm going to ask a question about UTEP. Are they the worst team in FBS? Now, before you answer, let me provide a little bit of context. There are only 3 winless FBS teams remaining. You have UTEP.
2 of them are in CUSA.
You have Kennesaw State. And then you have Kent State from the MAC. Now, in defense of Kent State, their non-conference schedule has been borderline hell because they've had to take on Penn State, Tennessee, and Pitt, all road contests. They did have to take on St. Francis. That's an FCS team. They dropped the ball there. And then they most recently got blown out by Eastern Michigan to start the conference stretch. So
hey, man, they're getting some money, though.
Yeah, in defense of Kent State, their non-conference schedule is one of the toughest in all of college football. Now, in defense of Kennesaw State, obviously they're a brand new FCS team, or they're making the jump from FCS to FBS. A lot of players did not return from that squad, and they're experiencing a lot of newcomers in a, again, pretty tough non-conference slate, but you have to give them the benefit of the doubt, as you would have done with Sam Houston and Jacksonville State when they made the jumps to FCS to FBS, because they're still getting used to everything. And it's going to be successful for them in the long run. In defense of UTEP, that's where it starts to get a little bit difficult because you don't have a lot of defense for UTEP because they've been around FBS for a long time. Whoa. They have a first-year head coach, which I understand, but they don't have the same excuses that Kent State and Kennesaw State do, in my opinion. So now I'll let you answer the question, Kevin. Is UTEP the worst team in FBS?
No. I mean, you kind of said it in your explanation. There's Scotty Walden, who I absolutely love. You know this very much. I have said it.
Yeah, you're times. A Scotty Walden sim.
I'm a huge Scotty Walden stan. I love the guy. I was able to meet him at CUSA Media Days. Super cool dude. But yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. First year head coach. He just similar to Kennesaw State. You're bringing a lot of FCS talent to your team. A lot of Austin Peay transfers. Mm-hmm. Quarterback situation's a little bit unclear. I mean, you have a lot of speed on the wide receivers. I like Kenny Odom a lot. I believe Cam Thomas is another name. They're a really good team on special. They're really good on special teams. So that's something to keep an eye out on. Decent punter. They have great kick returner in Corey Wren. So we'll see what happens, man. I unfortunately I still have to say Kennesaw and Kent State are far worse. And I know Kent State went through that horrible non-con, but I mean they must have gotten some cash out of that. I mean they did. Cash. Yeah, I mean. Those are pay games. So overall, man, I wouldn't say UTEP's the worst. They've played some really close games. They played Western Kentucky, which we're recording this on Friday. They played yesterday. They played them close through like the first quarter and a half, and honestly, they were in it up until the midway through the third quarter. And they played Colorado State close. They played Liberty pretty close. Like they're bound to win a game, and they're a solid squad. In my opinion, they have some really fun names out there, and you look at the leaders in the conference on defense and total tackles. I want to say Dorian Hopkins is literally number 2 in total tackles. Then you have solos. I mean, you still have a couple other guys down there. Dorian Hopkins, Xavier Smith is in there. Corey Chapman. They have a lot of guys who've done it. Total tackles. I mean, you have Katie Johnson, who's number 8 in the conference in total tackles. And overall, they're not, I mean, their defense has definitely struggled a little bit. They have the 8th ranked defense in the conference, but they have a pretty decent pass offense. They're number 5 somehow. And that is a little surprising to me. They've struggled to run the ball a little bit. They had actually a running back, Jolly, who ran for over 100 yards against Western.
Yeah.
But pass defense is number 2 in they have the second best pass defense in the conference. They literally, FIU jumped them after the Western Kentucky game. But just like FIU, they do struggle to stop the run. So there's positives and negatives. They have a lot of guys who I really like. Like I'm a big fan of Cade McConnell. I like Skylar Walker. I think just with due time, they'll be able to improve a little bit. It's also a little weird 2 quarterback system. We'll see what happens. McConnell did get hurt, and I think every FIU fan knows who Cade McConnell is after torching FIU last year in the Vice game. But yeah, we'll see what happens. McConnell had some sort of wrist injury, I think, after an interception he threw, and they put in Locklear, who struggled. There's another way to put it. He was all right, but he struggled. Didn't throw for over 100 yards, but we'll see, man. The Sun Bowl's not an easy place to play. FIU, honestly, they're 1-3 all time or 1-2 all time at the Sun Bowl. They're not very good.
Yeah.
Their last win in the Sun Bowl came in 2016. Now, granted, they have barely played UTEP even as a conference mate. So they've only had 6 matchups with UTEP all time, which is insane to think of. But this is probably their last one at the Sun Bowl, and then one more, I believe, at Miami before the season ends.
By the way, want to briefly, I'm sure you'll find this interesting, Kevin. Going back to the winless Kent State, they gave up 55 points to Pittsburgh. They gave up 71 points to Tennessee, 56 to Penn State, and most recently 52 to Eastern Michigan. That's 234 points given up in 4 games of work.
Jesus Christ. Like, how do you think about scheduling 3 power conference? I know you're getting some money, and that's
they're getting hella dough, but
it is. They are, but that's gonna be a tough program.
By the way, they were shut out in the Tennessee and Penn State games, so it was 71-0, then 56-0, back-to-back weeks.
Not surprised,
that's
but
rough.
I do want to highlight really quickly on UTEP, Kenny Odom. That guy's a baller. He's a very, very fast wide receiver. He has 19 receptions for 435 yards, and he is tied for first with most touchdowns in CUSA at 4. So he's a baller. Definitely is. He has, I believe, one of the longer plays of the season. He has 76-yard reception this year. So they've been able to get some stuff going. And I mean, he's up there with like Eric Rivers and Omari Kelly of Middle Tennessee for like top receivers in the conference. He'll be an conference selection.
Dorian Hopkins is the player I'm really most scared of from this UTEP team. I think he's second most tackles in Conference USA, right behind Travion Barnes. 52 total so far this season. He is a menace, man. FIU's running game already struggles to get past the linebackers. I don't know how they're going to get past Hopkins.
And that's the thing too, because UTEP is a team that's very aggressive on defense. They're going to get to the quarterback, and they did it against Western 3 times yesterday. So, I mean, they got to the Cade Velkamp 3 times. So, we'll see what happens.
By the way, UTEP went 3-9 last season. Aside from beating FIU on Vice Night, posing in front of the Lamborghini, they also beat Incarnate Word, which is obviously FCS, and then they beat Sam Houston in Huntsville, by the way, which obviously the 3-9 season prompted the firing of their previous head coach. I think Dana Dimmel.
I think it's Dana Dimmel.
Something along those lines. And now they brought in the new guys, who obviously has not had a great start to this season. But I know the players and the fans have a lot of trust in him. Saying you do too. So
I would run through a brick wall for that, man. Sorry, Coach Mac. Let me be fair. I would run through a brick wall for Coach Mac.
Absolutely.
I love Coach Mac, but I also love Scotty Walden.
Like, everyone just has great things to say about him. It's not just you who's sipping for him. Like, pretty much everyone in this Conference USA.
That was a very good hire, and he's a young coach. Like, you know, nowadays in college football, like, he's a guy who knows what those. Yeah, he's a player's coach. He's really good. Yeah.
But let's hear from someone who's been covering UTEP, covering the winless UTEP Miners.
I love the UTEP media over there.
UTEP media is great.
I'm not going to UTEP. I was going to, not happen, but I was very excited to talk to them. But I love the UTEP media.
You do have some cool news to share, though, Kevin. About soon. Okay. As we get closer, we'll bring that up. But yeah,
it's like over a month away, bro.
UTEP has obviously a wonderful stadium. It's beautiful, a great press box I've heard as well, and a lot of media that cover that team. I mean, El Paso is a big city. It's a big city, and a lot of eyes on the Sun Bowl. So let's bring in the MinerTalk podcast now. They do great work covering UTEP, specifically Zay Galindo, who's part of the group, and I had the chance to speak with him and talking about all things UTEP. So let's hear what UTEP Zay had to say on the Miners right now. Hey, everybody. We hope you're enjoying the Paws Up preview so far. I'm Jake Gibson. That's my friend and co-host, Kevin Barral. And now we get into the UTEP portion of this preview where we talk about our opponent, the UTEP Miners. And, of course, we're bringing on a very a special guest from the world of UTEP. We were talking about it in the preview. UTEP media does not mess around. And Zay Galindo is in the forefront of that, a member of the MinerTalk podcast, as well as the Pay Dirt Pulse podcast. Zay, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on, and I'm excited to talk some UTEP football.
Yeah, it should be a fun matchup. All things point to it. Still can't believe FIU, a road favorite in that game.
Yeah.
Kevin and I have been gushing about it for a while now, but no, it's going to be a big game for both teams. A lot to prove for both squads. So before we even get into that, Zay, I wanted to ask you because it's pretty much the hot topic of UTEP right now, aside from the Scotty Walden stands, and there are a lot, but UTEP. Yeah, yes. UTEP's joining the Mountain West. They were the most they were the most tenured member of Conference USA. Now they're joining a West Coast based conference. Just what are your thoughts on UTEP finally making the jump? I know UTEP social media loves it. How do you love it?
Yeah, definitely thought it was the right move, and gotta love Conference USA. I know that maybe UTEP fans might trash on it, but been here for north of 20 years, haven't done much, and it just wasn't the right fit for UTEP. And whether the Mountain West, it's definitely watered down, but it's needed for this kind of culture change that needs to happen at UTEP. For winning to start happening. So definitely a big fan of the move, but definitely going to keep an eye out on the Conference USA.
Yeah, can never truly let it go. Especially because the New Mexico State is still up in the air about what's going to go on with them if they're going to stay in no man's land in that region of CUSA or join either Mountain West or the Pac-12. You never know. So speaking of wins, you brought up wins, and that's something that UTEP is lacking right now in football. It's been a pretty treacherous schedule. You start off with a power conference team in Nebraska, then you pack the house in the Sun Bowl against the FCS Southern Utah. Things don't go your way there either. Overall, an 0-6 record to begin this season. Entering this season, is this how you thought it was going to go? Did you feel like UTEP was going to get more on a hot start once they got by Nebraska? Is just 0-6 is obviously a tough pill to swallow, no matter what team you're rooting for. Just how do you feel about the record? Was it what you were expecting?
Well, I definitely wasn't expecting 0-6, but I'll say that there was probably I might have said it a couple of times. 1-5 was possible. I definitely thought I kind of colored in Southern Utah as a win, and obviously that's a big shocker. That's a big no-no, regardless, new coach or not. But, I definitely thought, hey, the schedule could get tough. Back in my mind, I knew that Sam Houston could have a really, really good team as they ended up having. And, Liberty's Liberty and Western Kentucky is Western Kentucky. So, the non-conference was not easy either. So under a new coach, Scotty Walden, whole new roster, yes, I did think that this could happen, but I didn't think it would be this bad. I haven't seen a lot of things to hang your hat on for UTEP. Not a lot of positives.
Non-conference isn't even over as well. You have Tennessee as the penultimate game of the season. So just in hindsight, scheduling Nebraska and Tennessee in the same season, woof, that ain't good.
Making that money.
I get it, Kevin. I get it.
I mean, yeah, money talks. So
definitely going to help for the Mountain West, but I think Jake said it. I love Scotty Walden. I love what he's doing over there. Just talk a little bit about him and just how he's kind of keeping these guys motivated. It definitely seems like on the sideline, I was watching the Western Kentucky game, and it doesn't matter how much they were losing by. Those guys were pumped out there on the sidelines during every kickoff and during big plays, no matter what the score was, especially on the Corey Wren 100-yard touchdown there.
Yeah, I mean, Scotty has so much energy. He's a ball of energy. I mean, at the end of the day, he is my height, and I'm not a tall guy. He is my height, but man, I mean, this guy is just pumped up, juiced up, 24/7. And it's going to look corny to other people because they're 0-6. But hey, if he's able to turn this around and they're a good team, I mean, this culture is going to be infectious. Everybody's going to want to come see UTEP play. See this exciting, exciting young coach who is just. He's a character. He's a character on the sidelines. He's a guy that, if UTEP's down 49-0, he'll call a timeout if it's a, so-called crucial part of the game. It's just what he is. It's needed for UTEP. And even though, the results aren't translating on the field, off the field, he's still winning a lot of fans.
Talk about the quarterback situation for you guys, starting out with Skylar Locklear, the Austin Peay transfer. He starts a couple games, then struggles. You guys go with Cade McConnell, who FIU fans are very familiar with after what happened last year. And then he gets, I believe, a wrist injury, and now Skylar's back at it there. But at the moment, it seems like Cade's going to be a game time decision for you guys. Just talk about those two quarterbacks. It definitely seems like there's been some sort of two quarterback system, one both healthy at some point. So what have they brought to the table? I know that's been a position that's kind of struggled a little bit, at least for the most part this season. And, I mean, they'll have a good shot. It's not going to get any easier, honestly, against an FIU secondary, which at the moment is at the top of CUSA in terms of pass defense.
Yeah, I feel like, both Cade and Skylar, they have their ups and downs. More Skylar, him being a little younger, he's much more inconsistent. But, at this point, I think with Scotty Walden's offense, it doesn't matter who's at quarterback. If they don't get the run game going, the quarterback isn't going to have a good game. It's as simple as that. It revolves around, the run game getting going and UTEP being able to capitalize off that in the passing game. So a lot of screens, a lot of dunks and dives that, if you're seeing the quarterback play, it's not like they're asking the quarterback to do a lot. They're not really asking the quarterback to do much, read the defense correctly on the RPO, stuff like that. So I really don't think it's going to matter who's going to start this game against FIU. It's going to matter if this UTEP running game can get going. And I will say at the end of the day, Skylar Locklear is definitely the more dual threat fit for this offense, but he just has his ups and downs too much.
Talk a little bit about some of those weapons that you guys have on offense as well. I mean, despite some of the struggles in the past game, Kenny Odom has still been really good. Right now, he is, I believe, fourth amongst the Conference USA in receiving yards and tied for first in receiving touchdowns. And I know you guys were, I believe, using Jolly Ezel as well as running back, or Ezel Jolly. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Javon Jackson, who was the Texas State transfer. A lot of targets, a lot of speed as well at the UTEP with that UTEP offense. Something Coach Schmack was emphasizing a lot. Just talk about those targets and what they bring to the table.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about speeds. UTEP has it all over, which is why they want to get the ball to their playmakers in space. A lot of screens, and one guy they're going to see get a lot of usage is Cam Thomas. UTEP has this kind of minor back role, they like to call it, where he'll split time in the backfield and out wide. He does a lot for them. He's a fast guy. He's a big, durable guy. So, they're going to get the ball to him a lot. Same thing goes for, a guy like Trey Goodman, who came over with Scotty Walden from Austin Peay. He's the receiver. He hasn't been able to get going, much this season. He's kind of been overtook by, like you said, Kenny Odom. But, I mean, this guy can play. So they're going to look to get him and Cam Thomas the ball a lot. But, I mean, you said his name, Kenny Odom. He is the one bright spot, I think, on this offense so far because he just makes plays. He makes plays. He'll get 1 or 2 receptions every game, and he'll make the most out of them. So that's probably the big, guy that, if you're going to watch this game, FIU fan, keep him contained, and you'll probably have a good night.
And Kevin, this. I love some tough defensive players, and UTEP's got one of the best in Conference USA in Dorian Hopkins. I believe the second most tackles in the conference right now behind FIU's Travion Barnes. Just talk a bit about how much he means to this defense and how much it sort of revolves around how well he does specifically.
Yeah, I mean, fifth-year transfer from Tulsa, and he didn't even start the first game against Nebraska. He actually came in for an injury, and he just balled out. He kind of just took that spot and ran with it, and now he's one of the leaders of this defense, thankfully. He's definitely going to get a lot of tackles, and sometimes you see linebackers get a lot of tackles, but it doesn't really mean much. But when you watch Dorian Hopkins play, you can tell he really does make a difference on the field for this team. So, yeah, he's a really, really gritty guy off the field, great guy, a leader on that defense, which is something UTEP has been lacking.
What's up with Maurice Westmoreland? It definitely seems like he's having maybe a quiet year than it was expected of him.
Yeah, definitely. We're missing West Texas Mo out here. I mean, we have no idea where he went. Obviously, he's getting a lot of attention, a lot of double teams over there. Teams are scheming against him, but at the end of the day, if you want to be an NFL product, an NFL talent, you find ways to make plays, and Mo just hasn't done that much. So he had a sack against Western Kentucky, or he had TFL, one of the two. I don't know how they counted it, but they're going to need him. They're going to need him if they want to make a run, to get some momentum going into year 2 of Scotty Walden.
Where were you when the UTEP defense posed in front of the Lamborghini? What were you doing?
So I was here. I'm in the ESPN studios right now, and our guy Cade McConnell, he interns with us. So we were watching that. We were fixated on that game. Really, really excited to see one of his first starts. And I mean, I was shocked, man. We hear it on the radio that John Teicher is going crazy. Oh, they're posing in front of the Lambeau. And I'm like, what? No way. No way they went that far. I was surprised no penalty. I was expecting the penalty. I'm not going to lie.
Well, it was a quick pose, to be honest with you.
It was quick.
Security, I kind of moved them out of the way. Yeah, I mean, watching that was rough.
Yeah.
I mean,
it really makes me not want to see them do that again for the Sam Houston Vice game a couple weeks ago.
From what I understand, there's not going to be any Lambos. So FIU is like 0-2 when there's a car on the field. So let's not have one out there.
Let's not do that. Yeah,
I do want to ask about UTEP's pass defense. Entering that Western Kentucky game, they were at the top of CUSA in pass defense. FIU overtook them with that spot after that game, but they're number 2, and obviously it seems like something's going right for them. Just talk a little bit about that secondary, maybe the safeties, and just what some guys that kind of stand out there that have really made an impact over there.
Yeah, I mean that stat, I think it's a little skewed because UTEP's run defense has just been so abysmal. It's been so abysmal. You don't even need to pass the ball, but they do have playmakers. They have playmakers in the secondary. They were without 2 of their biggest playmakers in the secondary against Western Kentucky, that being, cornerback A.J. Odoms and safety Corey Chapman. I mean, those are the 2 guys. I think those are the 2 guys that are going to stand out. Their safeties are really, really strong. I'll say that. They're really physical safeties that are going to come down into the box, make hits, make opposing receivers and quarterbacks scared to throw over the middle. Corey Chapman, Oscar Moore, and Xavier Smith, all guys that are really, really talented, probably the leaders of that defense, especially in the secondary. In the corner, the second outside corner has been a position that's just been battled and fought for. It's 3 or 4 different guys on any given day. Probably going to see more younger guys. UTEP played a couple true freshmen on the defense, especially in the secondary against Western Kentucky. So, that secondary, it can be picked up, it can be picked on, but, they do have playmakers.
So let me ask you this, say FIU is the road favorite, the first time they've been a road favorite since 2018. What needs to go right for UTEP to knock off the Panthers in the admittedly very lovely Sun Bowl at 9:00 Eastern?
Yeah, for the Miners to get a win, to get their first win, they're going to need to really, really jump out on a quick, fast start, play with the lead, and do not let FIU get ahead early. If FIU is leading by double digits after the first quarter, this one's over. I really just don't have the faith in UTEP's offense to move quickly enough to overcome such a deficit.
That's exactly what they did last year. They got out to that 21-point lead, and then FIU had to spend the rest of the day crawling back into it, and they never did. So that's a good point there, say. Kevin, do you have anything else?
What's the Sun Bowl like? I was gonna go, and I unfortunately not. So what's the Sun Bowl like?
I mean, seasons like this, it's empty. So maybe it's a little nicer empty. You get, the nice sunset, the beautiful mountains. I mean, people aren't going to believe me on this, but it actually smells great there. Like, it smells like, I don't know, it smells like nature. That's what I would say. It smells like nature. So I just love it. I love it there. The atmosphere is great. It's now not hot in the Sun Bowl. It gets pretty hot. Being up there, but now it's kind of transitioning into fall. Great views, great weather, just a great atmosphere, great stadium to be played college football. I mean, the best sport, in all sports is college football, in my opinion. And the venues in Sun Bowl, it captures everything that you love about college football.
Well said, Zay. Thank you so much for spending some time with us here, man. If you could go ahead and drop your @ on socials for yourself, maybe even your co-host Adrian Broadus. You guys do great work on the MinerTalk as well as the Pay Dirt Pulse, so that the FIU fans know what you guys are doing to plan ahead for this game.
Yes. You guys can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, or X. My bad, X at UTEPZay. My co-host Adrian Broadus. We both co-host MinerTalk and our new podcast, the Pay Dirt Pulse podcast. That drops every Monday. Part of the Dave Campbell's Republic of Texas Football. So follow him on X at Adrian Broadus, and follow our radio station at 600 ESPN El Paso. Sports talks every weekdays from 4 to 7. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you, Zay. Now let's get back into the Paws Up preview as Kevin and I go over around FIU athletics this week in CUSA, and make our game picks. Alrighty, that was Zay from the MinerTalk podcast. Be sure to give him a follow on socials at UTEP Zay. Also give a follow to Adrian Broedis. I believe that's how you say his name. He's also the host of the MinerTalk podcast. They do great work there. Obviously, some fun to talk to in the Conference USA podcast roundtable. So, Kevin, we're going to save predictions for the end, but what are some aspects of FIU that you think will thrive against this UTEP team?
Yeah, I mean, I think first thing you have to look at is just like you have a chance to really take advantage of the run game. It's a team that doesn't run the ball well to begin with.
Yeah,
they've struggled to stop the run more than FIU. So I mean, that's one thing. I'm going to be curious to see how tested these cornerbacks for the Miners are. This is a team obviously that defends the pass pretty well. They limited Caden Veldkamp a decent amount, but they were able to take advantage. They weren't able to do too much against Veldkamp. Kind of dominated them the other day, but since aside from that, they were able to get to Salter to a decent amount. So I mean, I'm curious to see. I believe they're up there in terms of most receptions in the conference or most interceptions. I'm going to quickly check that right here. They have they only have 2 interceptions this year, but I believe they're pretty good at sacking. Yeah, they have second most sacks in the conference, or second or most sacks by. I'm assuming sacks by is the team that sacks. So yes, UTEP has 15 sacks this year. Fumbles forced, they're number 9. Geez. And recovered their number 5. So overall, UTEP's defense caused a lot of havoc. So we'll see. I think Keywan's gonna have to use his legs a decent amount. Yeah. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see a couple Wildcat options out there for FIU. I think they really should take advantage of that. Maybe a couple trick plays here and there. I mean, they need to take advantage of what they can. This is a good defensive line, in my opinion. It's a team that really is going to get after you. And on the defensive side for FIU, those cornerbacks are going to have some work to do. And those are some speedy wide receivers. It's going to be similar to what we saw against, I want to say, Monmouth or FAU, like one of those games.
Okay.
Quick tempo offense that is a pass-heavy offense.
Yes.
UTEP, not UTEP. FAU was able to take advantage of the run, obviously. But I think Monmouth definitely took advantage of the pass. So we see some sort of combo there, in my opinion. But UTEP has 2 quarterbacks. We'll see who plays, who doesn't. If I had to assume right now, if McConnell just isn't a go, I think it'll be Locklear. And he made a good case to start the next week. So
he did.
I believe Scotty Walden will speak on Monday. Well, today, technically, the day you're watching this. So at that point, we would already know more or less who the starter is going to be. But I'm intrigued. I've been following UTEP a lot, and I really like their program. I like what they're doing. There's 2 teams outside of FIU that I've watched this year, Jake, a lot of, and it's Jacksonville State and UTEP. Funny enough. I'm excited to see what's up with them.
Let's take a break from talking about football here for a second and get into what you need to know around FIU athletics. Who to keep an eye on for in there we go. All right. Starting things off with men's soccer. At the time of recording, which was on October the 11th, they have a 4-4-2 record, most recently coming off a loss or a win to the UAB Blazers by a score of 3-2. The upcoming game that you can watch is not going to be against Charlotte on October the 12th. We'll see how they do then. But you will be able to see them take on VCU over in Richmond, Virginia on Wednesday, October the 16th at 7 p.m. Their next home game will be on Sunday, October the 20th. This is a good one, Kevin. Hosting FAU at the Leyva Family Field. That's going to be at 7 o'clock and can also be seen on ESPN+. Next up here is FIU women's soccer, who at the time of recording is on a 6-game winning streak. They currently have a 9-3 record. They're coming off a win against Louisiana Tech, a shutout win, might I add, on the road in Ruston. We'll see how they do again in their upcoming game against Sam Houston on Sunday. But the next game that you'll be able to watch that's coming up is going to be on Sunday, October the 20th at noon, when they take on the Kennesaw State Owls. That can be watched on ESPN+. They'll then head back home to close out the season in a doubleheader starting off on Sunday, the 27th against Western Kentucky, and then on the 31st against Jacksonville State. And then it's tournament time for FIU women's soccer. So we wish the best of luck to them. Moving on now to FIU indoor volleyball. They have a 2-15 record right now. They are coming off a couple of postponed games against the Liberty Flames. Prior to that, they were on a pretty lengthy losing streak, I believe 7 straight. They're going to look to turn things around this weekend when they take on Western Kentucky at the Ocean Bay Convocation Center. But the upcoming games that you can watch are going to be on Friday and Saturday when they head to Las Cruces to take on the New Mexico State Aggies. The first match is on Friday, October 18th at 8 o'clock, and the second is on the 19th at 2 o'clock. Both of those games will be on ESPN+. And finally, FIU women's soccer, or swim and dive, I should say, is still coming off that loss to the University of Miami to start the season, but then placed in first in the TYR Fall Classic only a few days ago. So they have some time to rest and recuperate before they take on SMU in a meetup at the Biscayne Bay Aquatic Center on Saturday, October the 26th at 10 a.m. Okay, that was your look at FIU athletics. Now it's time to get into some Conference USA predictions, starting with this week in CUSA. Let me pull up the screen right now to see how we did this past week. Some good. What have I told you, Kevin, by the way? That the one game people expected to be a blowout was not the blowout, and every single other game this week in Conference USA was a blowout.
Well, except our game, but yeah.
We'll see here. FIU lost to Liberty 31-24. That was the game people thought wasn't going to be close. Jacksonville State beat the brakes off of New Mexico State 54-13. That wasn't close. That wasn't close from the rip.
I learned a lot about in that game.
Yeah, shout out Jacksonville State. They proved a lot of people wrong.
Tyler Huff, that guy's a stud.
He is a stud. New Mexico State, again, making a case for being one of the worst teams in Conference USA. Nothing looked good about.
Jeez, they may be the worst, honestly. Like I know they have a win, but yeah.
La Tech blew out Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee's defense is so bad that even the dysfunctional Louisiana Tech offense can look really good against them.
Yeah.
I mean, that wasn't good. And then Western Kentucky, with those funny-looking big red uniforms, blew out UTEP. Nothing I saw from UTEP in that game made me really scared about them in this upcoming matchup against FIU. But no, I think that was more just Western Kentucky flexing their muscles. They looked good on both offense and defense.
Yes, they did.
So we'll close it up there. Let me pull up the how we both did. We both had the same record this week. We both went 3-1. We both had Middle Tennessee beating Louisiana Tech. Clearly, we trusted too much in Louisiana Tech's defense, and that screwed us up.
Sounds good, baby. Let's keep it going.
So the season standings right now, I lead with a 35-11 record. Kevin's right behind with a 31-15 record. So it's still anybody's race. However, obviously these midweek matchups, you only get a few games to predict, so the season standings can't change too much. But let's see what we decide to do here in week 8. Starting on Tuesday, October the 15th, Kennesaw is taking on Middle Tennessee at 8 o'clock. Now, I was not moved by Middle Tennessee this past game. However, I haven't been moved by Kennesaw at all this season. Give me the Blue Raiders in a close one. Going to be closer than the experts think.
Give me Brian Bohannon, baby. Give me Kennesaw State.
Dude,
what I saw from Middle Tennessee was not good.
Bad. But I don't know how much.
But it's like Kennesaw's offense, I think, will just do enough. I mean, they have a pretty decent run game. Their quarterback has struggled, but their defense has been able to hold off. I mean, they played a close game against Jack State, at least to begin the game, at least to begin the first half of football, and like it's most of the second. But yeah, I mean, I think they'll pull it off.
Hey, if Kennesaw wins now,
they're in Murfreesboro, right?
Yeah, they're in Murfreesboro.
That's a pretty tough place to play, but I'm going to keep my prediction with Kennesaw.
By the way, if Kennesaw does win this, it'll put less pressure on that FIU game, as maybe they don't want to get their first win ever.
Yeah, first match in program history too.
All All right. Also on Tuesday, Louisiana Tech is taking on New Mexico State at 9 p.m. It's the Battle of Mid. But you know what? I Louisiana Tech didn't look that bad against Middle Tennessee, and New Mexico State is, I think, even worse than Middle Tennessee. So, it's simple math. Give me the Bulldogs on the road.
I agree. Yeah, New Mexico State looked really bad. Like, that was the first time I'd watched them this year. That was not good. That was rough. Do we have a New Mexico State pod in the roundtable?
We do not. They're like the only pod. They're only team that doesn't have one. We already have one lined up for when Delaware joins. Still hunting for Missouri State, but
I mean, dude, I don't think any New Mexico State pod exists right now after what that team's doing.
I think they have.
I will keep off camera.
I think they have an official one, actually. I think New Mexico State Athletics has their own pod. But as far as fan podcasts, I haven't seen it.
I don't know how much football they should be covering on there.
The only social media presence I see for New Mexico State is from their Barstool account, which is pretty active. I'll give them credit. That's just
it was funny. Yeah, I was covering that game, and it was pretty funny.
And then, are you ready for maybe the game of the year in Conference USA? It is Western Kentucky taking on Sam Houston State. Probably the battle for the second place spot, or maybe even first place in Conference USA. That's on Wednesday at 7:00. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to watch this game. Obviously, we're going to be watching FIU UTEP, but I'm going to have to cut in to check how that game's doing. It's a toss-up. You have an amazing offense led by Veltkamp for Western Kentucky and a very solid defense against Sam Houston State. It's a coin toss, Kevin. I'm not sure where to lean to, but you know what? I think a lot of road teams are going to win this week in Conference USA. And you know what? I was going to say Sam Houston leading up to this recording. Now I'm going to change my pick. I'm going Western Kentucky.
This is a really, really good matchup.
It might be the best game in Conference USA this season.
Like, through 6 games, Sam Houston has the 3rd best offense in the conference. Western Kentucky's right behind them. Same thing goes with defense. Sam Houston is the 3rd best. Western is the 4th. Sam Houston is the 2nd best rushing offense. Western is the 5th. And then Western Kentucky and Sam Houston. Third best rush defense, 4th best rush defense. And then passing is kind of where it gets a little different here. Mm-hmm. Western is the best passing offense. Sam Houston is 8th. And then passing defense, Sam Houston is number 3. Western's number 8. I'm going to go Western Kentucky, but just because I think they're going to be able to take advantage of the pass. But Sam Houston's going to run that ball, and Hunter Watson's been really fun to watch.
Yeah.
But I will say it's going to be a highly close matchup. We'll be there together to watch that game. That'll be a fun time. We'll be watching FIU men's soccer on one screen, then UTEP, and I mean not UTEP. What's that other game?
Western.
Western and that's gonna be a fun game, man. I'm excited to watch that one.
Do you remember when Texas A&M beat LSU in 2018? It went into 7 overtime, something crazy like that. We can see something similar happen here. It's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a shootout.
It will.
Whoever has the ball last will probably win that game.
Agreed.
Alrighty then. Now it is time to ask a pretty big question, I would say. Who will win? The most important question asked here. As always, before we share our thoughts, let's see what the boys at EA Sports and College Football 25 think about who's going to win in El Paso.
Winning those individual 6-second battles every play, time after time after time after time, and that leads to a victory here.
And I love when teams go out and play like it's sudden death. Like if they lose the game, their entire season is over. This game wasn't for the national championship, but you wouldn't know that watching this winning team, David.
I'm not mad about it, EA. I'm not mad about it.
I'll take it.
Jenkins went 13 for 18, 146 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks. Not a bad night. Not a bad night in business for him. Keyshawn Owens, 15 carries, 99 yards. Lexington Joseph had a touchdown. Josiah Meeman led all receivers, 4 catches for 40 yards and a touchdown. That's interesting. And I had defense here. Where did the defense go? It was Elijah Anderson Taylor, leading the way with 8 tackles. JoJo Evans right behind him with 7 total tackles. So not a bad night in the house for FIU. We'll say that. So there's only one more thing left to be asked, Kevin. Who will win this matchup between the FIU Panthers and the UTEP Miners? Start off with you, Kevin. Give us your prediction and your score.
Well, FIU will win. I think that's unfortunately a given for UTEP. The score, I think it'll be, let's go 24-12 FIU.
24-12. So not a super high scoring game, all things considered.
Just enough to call it more or less a blowout.
By the way, I believe the line is already out for this game. It's the Panthers 2 and a hook.
Oh, is it? Oh, what?
FIU opened up as a 1 and a hook favorite. It's gone up. Now it's 2 and a hook in favor of the Panthers.
Yes.
How about that? Over under 49 and a hook. So, you know what? I haven't felt confident about FIU in a long time. Gosh dang it. But they played their guts out against one of the best group of 5 teams there are. They deserve to have a blowout win. And I know they had one against Central Michigan, which I think has actually aged very well because the Chippewas have gotten better. But I think FIU is due for a road blowout, something they haven't done in a hot minute. And I think this is going to be the perfect opponent to do this against. Give me FIU by a score of, how about 35-10? Give me 35-10 in favor of the Panthers over the Miners, Kevin. How about it? 35-10.
Hey, man. Going pretty big there, but yeah.
I feel
that's like best case scenario, honestly.
Best case, yeah. I mean, everyone's gonna ball out, But alrighty. So what? We're gonna be watching this together, Kev. Johnny's gonna be there too. It's gonna be a little party there as we watch the Panthers take on the Miners.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty. Any final thoughts before we wrap up here? Who do you really want to see ball out in that game for FIU?
This is the other prediction. FIU will have a 100-yard rusher finally.
Woo! I love it. It's the perfect defense to do it against,
I agree.
By the way, I don't think the Sun Bowl is going to be as packed as it was for that game against Southern Utah.
It was a pretty big game, man.
It's a big stadium. You're going to see a lot of empty seats, I think.
So that's a fun place to go to.
All righty. Enjoy the game, everybody. It should be a fun one. Once again, FIU taking on UTEP. It's a late kick. It's a 9:00 kick, Kevin. That means the game's not going to be over until midnight. So
it's okay, man. We're here to ride it out, baby. Let's go, baby. Let's go, Panthers.
Wednesday, October 16th at 9:00. It's another nationally televised game, which you love to see. CBS Sports Network. I wonder if it's going to be the same broadcasting crew as the Liberty game. I think it will, but we shall see. So enjoy the game, everyone. We'll be here for Paws Up halftime show and the post-game show as well. So go Panthers. Let's hope for a great game. And Paws Up.
Paws up, baby.